You have been born into a family that carries both the blessing and the wound, and though your heart may ache with the weight of that inheritance, I tell you now, it is precisely this wound that has shaped the contours of your soul. There is no awakening without pain, no journey into the deep waters of the psyche without first being pushed from the shallow shore by those you trusted most. You look back at your childhood and wonder if the shadows cast by your family's cruelty, neglect, or misunderstanding have broken you. But I say this, they have not broken you, they have called you. The toxic family is often the alchemist's fire, burning away the illusions that keep you asleep. It is there, amidst the chaos, that your true self begins to stir, and though the pain is sharp and often unbearable, it is also the first whisper of your individuation, of the beginning of the path, where you step out of the collective and dare to meet your soul. When I speak of toxic, I do not mean merely flawed. Every family is flawed, for perfection is not human. I speak of that force within the family system that seeks to devour the individuality of the child, that manipulates, that projects its own unhealed wounds onto the young and innocent, binding them to a cycle of pain. If you grew up being silenced, shamed, or gaslit, you have met this force. Perhaps it was subtle, a quiet denial of your truth, withholding of love, or perhaps it was violent, loud, impossible to ignore. In either case, it leaves scars that are not easily seen by the world, scars that manifest as self-doubt, as shame, as a fear of being truly known, and yet these very scars can become portals, openings through which the light of consciousness enters. The child of such a family often learns early that love is conditional, that affection is tied to performance or submission. And this is a deep betrayal of the soul, for the soul was never meant to be tamed. But when you awaken to this betrayal, when you begin to see that the roles you were forced to play, the scapegoat, the golden child, the invisible one, were masks placed upon you, you start to hear the call of your authentic self. It is a terrifying call, for it asks you to shed everything you thought you had to be in order to be loved. But this is the moment of initiation. This is where the real work begins. Your family's toxicity is not just personal, it is archetypal. It echoes the patterns of the collective unconscious, the ancient stories of gods and monsters, heroes and tyrants, the mother who cannot love without control, the father who wounds with silence. The siblings who compete and betray these are not merely individual failings. They are manifestations of the archetypes that move through all of us. To awaken is to see your family, not as a personal curse, but as a stage upon which the great drama of the psyche unfolds. You are both actor and observer, both wounded child and awakening soul. The toxic family teaches you about the shadow. You learn that beneath the polite smiles and family photographs lies a darkness no one wants to acknowledge. It is this darkness, repressed anger, unspoken shame, unhealed trauma that poisons the family well. And because the family cannot face its own shadow, it projects it onto the child. You may have been blamed for things that were never yours to carry, made to feel responsible for the unhappiness of those around you. This is the inheritance of the wounded lineage, and it is brutal. But to see the shadow, to name it for what it is to reclaim your power. When you refuse to carry what is not yours, when you turn inward and face your own wounds without judgment, you step into the archetype of the healer. Do you understand the paradox? The very family that tried to silence you has given you the gift of voice. The ones who shamed you for being sensitive have made you attuned to the unseen, the unspoken, the mysterious currents of the psyche. The ones who abandoned you have taught you the fierce necessity of belonging to yourself. In this sense, your toxic family is the crucible of your awakening. They are the rough hands that have shaped you into a vessel capable of holding the fire of consciousness. But the path is not easy. When you begin to awaken, there is a temptation to rage, to seek revenge, to prove to them that you are more than what they said you were. This rage is natural. It is the first surge of life returning to your being. But if you stay in the rage, you remain tied to them. True awakening requires something deeper, the courage to detach, to step out of the old roles entirely, to no longer seek their approval or validation. This is not a simple act of rebellion. It is a descent into the depths of your own unconscious, where you meet the parts of yourself that were exiled in childhood. The dream world becomes an ally on this journey. In dreams, you may see your family in distorted forms, your mother as a witch, your father as a towering shadow, your childhood home as a labyrinth of locked doors. These images are not random. They are messages from your unconscious guiding you toward integration. The witch mother is not just your mother. She is the archetype of the devouring feminine, the part of you that fears being consumed by the demands of others. The shadow father is not just your father. He is the archetype of authority, the part of you that struggles with your own inner tyrant. To work with these dreams is to retrieve the pieces of your soul that were fragmented by your upbringing. You must also confront the inner voice that was shaped by their words. How many times have you heard that voice say, "You are not enough," that you are too much, that you are unworthy of love? That voice is the internalized shadow of your family, the ghost of their projections living inside your mind. It is not you. To awaken is to recognize that you are not the voice of self-hatred, but the one who hears it. This shift, this simple awareness is revolutionary. For when you see the voice for what it is, you can begin to speak to it with compassion, to unlearn the lies you were taught. Do not underestimate the power of this work. When you break free from the toxic patterns of your family, you are not only healing yourself, you are healing generations. The trauma that was passed down to you, often silently, through behaviors and beliefs, can end with you. You become the one who says, "It stops here." This is the work of the wounded healer. The archetype that carries both the scar and the medicine. Your awakening is not just for you. It is for everyone who came before and everyone who will come after. There is also a spiritual dimension to this journey. Your toxic family, as painful as they are, may have been chosen by your soul. This is not to excuse their harm or to romanticize suffering, but to recognize that there is a deeper intelligence at work. Sometimes the soul chooses the very circumstances that will force it to grow, to awaken, to remember its own power. Your family has given you the raw material, the chaos, the pain, the longing that now becomes the gold of your transformation. This is the alchemy of the psyche. The awakening does not happen all at once. It comes in waves. There are moments of clarity where you see with startling sharpness the dynamics that once kept you trapped. And then there are moments of doubt where you wonder if you are still that wounded child, still defined by their judgment. This ebb and flow is natural. It is like the rhythm of the ocean. Each wave brings you closer to the shore of your own selfhood. Trust the process. Trust that even when it feels like you are drowning in old pain, something within you is rising. Learning to breathe in the depths. The second wave of awakening often begins when you realize that the roles you were forced to play in your family are no longer compatible with who you are becoming. You feel the tension between the mask and the true face beneath it. Perhaps you were always the caretaker, the one who soothed everyone else's pain, because no one was there to soothe yours. Perhaps you were the invisible one, hiding in the corners, believing that your needs were a burden. Or perhaps you were the overachiever, chasing perfection because you thought love must be earned. These roles are survival strategies, but they are not your essence. To step beyond them is to risk losing the fragile connection you once had with your family. But it is also the beginning of genuine freedom. Freedom requires a confrontation with fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being alone, fear of being misunderstood. The child within you still longs for the approval of the family, even if that approval was never truly given. This is why the awakening can feel like a betrayal. You are not only walking away from them, you are walking away from the hope that they will someday become who you need them to be. This is a death of sorts, a mourning for the love that never was. But with this mourning comes a rebirth. When you let go of the illusion of a perfect family, you create space for a deeper love. A love that begins within yourself. The toxic family dynamic is a microcosm of the collective psyche. It shows you how power, control, and fear operate, not just in your household, but in the world at large. If you can see these patterns in your own family, you can also see them in society, in relationships, in the systems that seek to keep people small and compliant. Your awakening is not just personal, it is political, spiritual, archetypal. When you step out of the old roles, you are refusing to participate in the unconscious dance of control and submission. You are choosing to live consciously, to create relationships built on truth rather than fear. This is not an easy path. It demands that you face the darkness within yourself, not just the darkness in them. For as much as we may blame our families, we also carry the same seeds of toxicity within us. We are all capable of becoming the parent who controls, the sibling who manipulates, the partner who wounds. To awaken is to take responsibility for your own shadow, to see how you have internalized their patterns and unconsciously inflicted them on others. This is a humbling and often painful process, But it is also liberating, for when you see the shadow, you are no longer controlled by it. In dreams, this process often appears as a journey through a haunted house or a descent into a dark cave. These are not merely images, they are maps of the psyche. The haunted house is your childhood home, filled with the ghosts of old memories, old beliefs, old wounds. The dark cave is the unconscious, the place where your disowned parts are waiting to be reclaimed. As you move through these dream landscapes, you encounter figures that are both terrifying and familiar. Perhaps a monstrous figure appears only to reveal itself as a wounded child when you face it with courage. This is the paradox of the shadow. It is frightening only because it has been denied. Once embraced, it transforms. The awakening also brings you into contact with the archetype of the self. The self is not the ego, not the constructed identity you present to the world. It is the totality of who you are, the union of conscious and unconscious, light and shadow, masculine and feminine. Your toxic family, by forcing you to play roles, kept you fragmented, disconnected from this wholeness. But the suffering they caused pushes you to seek that deeper integration. The very pain that once felt like a curse becomes the catalyst for your spiritual evolution. In this sense, they are unwitting teachers. Through their inability to love you unconditionally, they push you towards the one place where unconditional love can be found within. There comes a moment when you realize that you no longer need their validation. This is one of the most profound shifts on the journey. You no longer need to prove your worth, because you see that your worth is inherent, untouched by their blindness. You begin to understand that their inability to love you fully was not a reflection of your inadequacy, but of their own unhealed wounds. This is not about excusing them, it is about seeing clearly. When you see them as wounded souls, trapped in their own unconscious patterns, you stop taking their actions personally. You can have compassion without allowing them to continue harming you. Compassion does not mean contact. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do for both yourself and your family is to create distance. Boundaries are not walls. They are sacred lines that protect your energy and your soul. When you set boundaries, you are not being cruel. You are breaking the cycle of harm. This may provoke anger or guilt. For families that thrive on toxicity often resist change, but you are not responsible for their reactions. You are responsible only for your own truth. As you move further along this path, you begin to reclaim the parts of yourself that were exiled in childhood. The playful child who was told to be quiet, the creative dreamer who was told to be practical, the sensitive soul who was told to toughen up. These parts are still within you, waiting to be welcomed home. This is the work of integration, of becoming whole. Each time you embrace one of these lost aspects, you feel a surge of energy, a sense of coming alive. This is what it means to awaken. It is to gather all the fragments of your being and bring them into the light of consciousness. Your toxic family may never understand this journey. They may never see the courage it takes to step out of their patterns. That is not your concern. You are not here to convince them, to save them, or to make them proud. You are here to become who you truly are. And In doing so, you may inspire them not through words, but through the quiet power of your presence. Some may awaken alongside you, while others will remain in the dream. This too must be accepted. There is a deep loneliness on this path, for awakening often means leaving behind not only your family but also the old versions of yourself. You may feel like a stranger in your own life, unsure of who you are, without the roles you once played. This is the necessary emptiness before the new life emerges. It is like the chrysalis stage of the butterfly dark, confining, and yet filled with invisible transformation. Trust that this loneliness is not a sign of failure, but of rebirth. In moments of despair, turn inward. Listen to your dreams, to the whispers of your soul. The psyche has its own intelligence, its own timing. There are forces within you that are greater than any family narrative, forces that seek to heal, to create, to love. When you connect with these forces, you begin to see that you are not alone. The archetypes, the collective unconscious, the great river of human experience, all of it flows through you. You are part of something vast and mysterious, something that no family dynamic can diminish. There comes a turning point in every awakening where you realize that forgiveness, in its truest sense, is not about absolving the toxic family of what they did, but about releasing the chains they have placed around your soul. Forgiveness is misunderstood when seen as condoning the harm or pretending that the pain was never real. True forgiveness is an act of liberation. It is a conscious decision to no longer allow their shadows to dictate your future. It does not mean you welcome them back into your life or forget the damage they may still be unsafe to your spirit. It means you reclaim the energy that has been trapped in resentment and redirect it toward your own healing and creation. This is a deeply alchemical process when you can look at the pain and say, this shaped me, but it does not define me. You have turned lead into gold. This gold is the wisdom born from suffering. You begin to see patterns not just in your family, but in all human relationships. You recognize the wounded child in the angry stranger, the unhealed trauma in the manipulative partner, the unconscious fear in the controlling boss. This does not mean you excuse harmful behavior, but you see its roots. You become both more compassionate and more discerning. You can offer empathy without becoming entangled, because you know what it feels like to be trapped in someone else's narrative. Your awakening sharpens your perception, allowing you to navigate the world with clarity. The toxic family often tries to convince you that you are alone, that no one will understand you outside their walls. But the truth is, once you step beyond those walls, you begin to meet others who carry similar stories. You realize you are part of a larger tribe of souls who have walked through fire and emerged transformed. There is immense healing in this recognition, in knowing that you are not an anomaly, but part of a lineage of survivors and seekers. These connections, whether found in friendships, mentors, or even books, become your chosen family. They remind you that love can exist without control. That connection can be free of toxicity. Yet, even as you find these new bonds, the inner work continues, for the family's voice lives on inside you. The old conditioning does not vanish overnight. Sometimes you will hear the echo of their criticism in your own thoughts. Sometimes you will catch yourself sabotaging your joy because a part of you still believes you don't deserve it. These moments are not failures, they are opportunities to bring awareness to the patterns when you recognize the voice of the inner critic. You can respond to it not with anger, but with curiosity. Whose voice is this really? What does it fear? When you engage with the inner critic as a wounded part rather than an enemy, you begin to heal even the deepest scars. The shadow work deepens here. You may find that some of the traits you despise in your family live within you. Two, this can be painful to admit, for no one wants to see the same toxic patterns in themselves. But the truth is, we all carry the potential for both light and darkness. If your father was emotionally distant, you may find that you, too, avoid intimacy when fear arises. If your mother was manipulative, you may notice moments when you try to control situations to feel safe. This is not a condemnation. It is an invitation to become conscious. When you own these patterns, instead of projecting them outward, you gain the power to change them. What you repress controls you. What you face transforms you. Your awakening will also bring you closer to the symbols and archetypes that emerge in dreams, art, and intuition. You may begin to see recurring images, a river, a serpent, a flame, and wonder what they mean. These are the language of the unconscious, guiding you toward the next step of your journey. The river may represent the flow of life you are learning to trust. The serpent may symbolize the energy of transformation, the shedding of old skins. The flame may remind you of the divine spark within, untarnished by any family narrative. When you honor these symbols, you connect with the deeper layers of your psyche, the layers untouched by toxicity. There is also the archetype of the hero, which stirs within you as you reclaim your life. The hero is not someone who conquers others, but someone who confronts their own darkness and emerges with a gift for the world. Your story is not just about surviving your family, it is about discovering who you are beyond them. This discovery often leads to a creative expression of some kind, for the psyche longs to give form to its journey. Perhaps you write, paint, sing, build, or teach. Through this creative act, you give meaning to your suffering. You turn your wounds into wisdom, your scars into symbols of strength. In this process, you begin to see that even the pain had a purpose. I do not mean that the harm was justified, never, but there is a mysterious law in the psyche where suffering, when faced and integrated, becomes the source of the greatest transformation. Had your family been entirely loving and supportive, you might never have been forced to descend into the depths of your own soul. You might never have discovered the vast inner world that now reveals itself to you. This is the paradox of awakening. What once seemed like your greatest curse becomes the doorway to your liberation. There will be days when you feel the weight of your past pulling you back, days when the memories are sharp and the longing for what could have been feels unbearable. In those moments, remember that healing is not a straight path. It spirals. You revisit the same wounds from different levels of consciousness, each time with more wisdom and more strength. Be gentle with yourself. Speak to yourself as you would to the wounded child you once were. Tell them they are safe now, that they are loved, that they no longer have to earn their worth. This inner dialogue is not a mere exercise, it is a reparenting of your soul, a way of creating the nurturing environment you were denied. As you grow, you may find that your relationship with your family shifts. For some, this means complete estrangement, a necessary severing to protect the self. For others, it means setting new boundaries while maintaining some form of connection. There is no right or wrong path here, only the one that preserves your inner truth. What matters is that you no longer sacrifice your soul for the illusion of belonging. True belonging arises when you can be yourself without fear or pretense. If your family cannot offer this, then you find it elsewhere, within and around you. The psyche, like nature, moves toward healing when given the chance. Just as a cut heals when kept clean, the soul heals when given space, attention, and compassion. Your toxic family may have planted seeds of fear and doubt, but you now have the power to cultivate a new garden within yourself. Each act of self-care, each moment of self-acceptance is a way of tending to this inner garden. Over time, the weeds of old narratives are replaced by the flowers of authenticity and love. There is a sacred moment in every awakening when you begin to see that your story is not merely about wounds, but about transformation. You realize that what once defined you no longer holds the same power. The shadows of your family may still linger, but they no longer dictate the rhythm of your soul. This is the moment when you step fully into your own center. No longer orbiting around their approval or disapproval, you begin to understand that the toxic family narrative was like a cocoon, painful, confining, but ultimately temporary. The butterfly cannot remain in the cocoon forever. The very pressure that once felt suffocating becomes the strength that allows you to break free. In this newfound freedom, you may feel both exhilarated and unsettled. Who are you when you are no longer the scapegoat, the caretaker, the invisible one? This question is not answered overnight. It unfolds through living, through listening to the subtle guidance of your inner voice. The ego, shaped by years of trying to survive the toxic environment, often resists this freedom. It wants familiar pain rather than unknown joy. But if you keep choosing the unknown, if you keep stepping into the truth of who you are becoming, you will find that life begins to align in unexpected ways. Synchronicities appear. People who resonate with your authentic self begin to enter your life. Opportunities arise that would never have been visible while you were still living under the weight of old roles. One of the greatest gifts of this journey is self-compassion. When you have been raised in an environment that taught you to criticize yourself, to doubt your every move, self-compassion can feel foreign. It is not weakness. It is the healing balm for your psyche. When you speak to yourself with kindness, when you allow yourself to be imperfect and still worthy, you are rewriting the inner script that your family left behind. You become your own sanctuary. The safe space you always needed but never had. This inner sanctuary is where the real awakening takes root. It is where you learn that your worth was never conditional. It was always there, waiting to be recognized, The toxic family often teaches us that love is scarce, that we must compete or conform to receive it. But once you awaken, you see that love is not something they could give or withhold. It is a force that flows through you when you are aligned with your true self. You no longer beg for crumbs of affection because you are feasting on the abundance of self-love. And in this fullness, you attract relationships that mirror this love back to you. You begin to experience connection that is free of manipulation and fear. Connection that allows you to grow rather than shrink. Still, awakening does not mean you will never feel the pull of the old wounds. There will be moments when a word, a glance, a memory triggers the pain of the past, but instead of being consumed by it, you can now witness it. You can hold it with the same compassion you would offer to a frightened child. You realize that the pain is no longer an enemy, it is a messenger. It reminds you of how far you've come, of the strength it took to rise, and with each trigger faced consciously, the hold of the past weakens. This path also invites you into a deeper relationship with the unconscious. You may notice that your dreams become more vivid, filled with symbols that seem to speak directly to your soul. The toxic family dynamic may still appear in these dreams, but often in transformed ways. Perhaps you see your parents as wounded children themselves, lost in their own labyrinths of fear. Or perhaps you dream of confronting a dark figure only to realize it is your own shadow. Waiting to be integrated, these dreams are not random. They are the psyche's way of guiding you toward wholeness. By paying attention to them, by writing them down, by reflecting on their meaning, you continue the work of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming who you truly are. At times, this journey may feel solitary, but solitude is different from isolation. Isolation is what you experience when your family refused to see your true self. Solitude, on the other hand, is the sacred space where you finally see yourself. It is the silence in which your soul's voice becomes clear. In this silence, you may feel the presence of something greater than yourself. Call it the self, the divine, the collective unconscious. It is here that you understand the deeper purpose of your awakening. You are not just healing for yourself, you are contributing to the healing of the human soul. For every act of consciousness ripples out into the collective. There is power in naming your story. When you speak the truth of what you endured, without shame or self-blame, you reclaim the narrative. You are no longer the victim of your family's toxicity. You are the storyteller, the one who holds the pen. And with this pen, you can write a future that is not dictated by the past. This act of storytelling is not just literal, it is energetic. Each time you choose authenticity over people-pleasing, each time you set a boundary or honor your feelings, you are rewriting the story of your life. You are showing the world and yourself what it means to live awake. As you integrate all of this, you may find moments of profound peace. These moments are not dependent on external circumstances, they arise from within, from the alignment of your inner and outer worlds. This peace is not the absence of pain, but the presence of wholeness. You can hold both joy and sorrow, light and shadow, without being torn apart. This is the gift of individuation, the fruit of walking through the fire, and not turning away. There will come a day when you look back on your toxic family and feel no anger, no bitterness, only understanding. You will see them not as monsters, but as wounded souls who never learned to break their own chains. You will see that their pain was theirs to carry, and you were never meant to bear it. This clarity is not cold, it is compassionate. It allows you to live fully without being tethered to the past. You may still choose to love them from afar, or you may choose no contact at all. Both are acts of integrity when they are chosen from the truth of your heart. And so, your awakening becomes not just about healing the past, but about creating the future. You begin to ask new questions. What do I want to create in this life? How do I want to show up in the world? What kind of legacy do I want to leave? These questions are not born of fear, but of freedom. You are no longer trying to prove anything to your family. You are simply living in alignment with your soul. This alignment is magnetic. It draws to you the people, places, and experiences that resonate with your true vibration. Life begins to feel less like a battle and more like a dance. In the end, the toxic family was not the end of your story. They were the beginning. They were the soil, however poisoned, from which your roots grew deep, and now you are blooming in ways they could never have imagined. Your awakening is your gift to the world, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. You stand as living proof that darkness does not have the final word. The final word is always consciousness. The final word is always love.